I am Johnny Massacre and welcome to my world. Tonight you're going to learn about how Republicans are about to pass the SAVE Act, which will make it law to provide a photo ID when you vote in federal elections, and how Republicans are going to remove a guardrail in the Senate, which is the place where laws are passed, that has never been removed before, that will enable them to pass this act and potentially will enable them to pass all the acts that Republicans have wanted approaching the midterms. Who is with me? Give me a hell yeah! So massive news. Republicans are trying to pass the SAVE Act. Now, the SAVE Act requires proof of citizenship, birth certificate, passport for federal voter registration and photo ID for federal voting. So if you're an illegal alien, you cannot vote anymore if they pass this bill. The SAVE Act also requires states to verify via Department of Homeland Security databases within 30 days and remove any non-citizens from voter rolls. So any sketchy non-citizens who might be voting in elections, they will be purged if this act passes. And for new registrations for voters, you actually have to do it in person. So you have to go down there. You can't apply for mail-in ballots and BS like that without showing your face. So this is a huge act, and it's a great step towards saving America, in my personal opinion. Why is this such big news? Well, here is a map of all the states that do not require voter ID. All of them were won by Democrats in 2024. So this lends credence to the theory that Democrats cheat in elections and illegals vote in elections. In California, in the bottom left, for example, it's against the law to show a voter ID. So there's absolutely no way to check if somebody fraudulently voted in elections. And is it any surprise why Democrats always win over there? So if the SAVE Act gets passed, Massacre mates, it means all of those blue states that won in 2024 will have to use ID. And it's not just in the presidential elections, it's also in the midterms. Local and state elections actually still won't require voter ID, but this is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. It's huge, massive, gargantuan, cataclysmic news. Now, here is Donald Trump talking about how he's going to get it done. Because in order to do this, you need to get rid of the filibuster. What is the filibuster? It's this weird kind of archaic gentleman's rule, if you will, that was passed where you need to have 60 votes in the Senate. After a bill goes from the House, it goes to the Senate. You need to have 60 votes for that bill to be passed into law, as opposed to 50. And the filibuster is used essentially with very controversial bills that require a clear majority to pass. Unfortunately, it's very unlikely that Republicans or Democrats, for that matter, are ever going to have a 60-40 lead in the Senate. And so the only way to pass bills like this is by getting rid of the filibuster. So Donald Trump is talking about getting rid of the filibuster, and this is cataclysmic news. Now, the filibuster has been gotten rid of twice before in recent times, but that was only to approve a SCOTUS, Supreme Court judge, and nominees. It has never been used to ram through, if you will, a regular kind of bill, a regular law. So if this happens, it probably means it's going to happen all the time in the future, and it might mean the end of the filibuster, and any single bill will be able to pass with a simple majority in the Senate. Democrats are extremely radical, in my opinion, and they clearly want to have illegals swamp America. It's obvious. All of the main Democrat talking points revolve and orbit around the locus of their strategy, which is to just have as many illegals as possible. If you're that radical and you're willing to destroy America and American way of life to get into power and create permanent one-party rule, of course they're going to nuke the filibuster themselves. Everybody knows it. So I think it's a good time to do this. The filibuster has been mutually assured destruction. It's like you both own nuclear warheads and you're reluctant to use it, because if you do, it means the other side could use it and you both could get messed up. Really, America, in my opinion, is on its last legs. And the demographic replacement is real, and it's happening logarithmically right now. So unless they do something in order to push through these kind of laws, they're never going to get passed. And the most important law you can pass is to protect your elections. So Trump is talking about nuking the filibuster, and it looks like, Massacre mates, this is actually going to happen. Here is the Trumpster God Emperor Agent Orange saying exactly that.
It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it. And if you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25. We have 3.25 years, so that's a long time. But when they can't do an extension, and John, I think they've done.
Did you hear that? He actually said we're going to nuke the filibuster. I can't believe what I'm hearing.
An extension every single time they've ever been asked forever. This is the first time they haven't done an extension. Extensions are supposed to be easy, but...
So anyway, Trump's going to nuke the filibuster, apparently. And he basically has to do this because the midterms are coming up the end of this year. And guess what? How's this for a messed up stat? Someone can fact check me on this in the comments, but I'm pretty sure it's true. In the last 90 years, only 2 times has the reigning party not lost seats in the House. Now, Republicans have a very slim majority, and somebody just died who was a Republican, and they've basically been replaced by a Democrat. And so the majority is so slim. If Republicans lose any more seats in the House in the midterms, and history suggests that they will, bills like this will never be able to pass. And the Democrats are going to impeach Trump straight away. We're going to go back to all that BS. So they have to push this through now. And if they push it through, then wow, well, maybe if elections really are free and fair, then Democrats are basically never going to regain power again, potentially. Elon Musk thinks this is the way forward, Massacre mates. He says voter ID and in-person voting is the only way to save democracy. Now, in that previous video, Trump went on to say we need to have in-person voting, we need to get rid of mail-in ballots. So the Republicans know what they need to do. It's not just ID that you need when you vote. You have to vote in person, and you have to get rid of mail-in ballots. If you do all of those things, especially adding in-person voting, then elections are going to be safe. They know this, but they're going to try to push this through first, which contains the most important part of legislation, which is voter ID. And then if they do that, then they'll look to put the other things through as well. Someone has introduced a bill, but that's coming into effect in 2027. And by that time, it might be too late if Democrats regain control of the House. Nevertheless, this is a step in the right direction, in my opinion, requiring voter ID to vote in federal elections. And voter ID is extremely popular. 83% of voters want it. They absolutely do, according to Pew Research Center. And here's a list of all the countries in the world that require ID in order to register a vote or cast a ballot. It's basically every country in existence, even it whole shades like Tunisia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Nicaragua, Morocco, Palestine, the absolute crater vortex Ithol Shay. Palestine apparently requires ID to vote. The only country that doesn't is the United States of America. Cream crackers, bruv. Even Jamaica requires ID to vote. So I don't really know what the argument against this is, but guess what? The Democrats are saying if you want voter ID, you're meddling with elections. So are they saying the quiet part out loud, that we're meddling with their strategy to get illegals to vote in elections? Ignorance is bliss, if you will, to a Democrat. They just will not admit the fact that we need secure elections. They're going to feign ignorance and say, well, what's this all about? We just want to keep it free and fair. But actually, they want illegals to vote in elections. Here's Chuck Schumer saying that the SAVE Act will be dead on arrival in the Senate, and warns of another GOP shutdown. And this is why the Republicans are going to nuke the filibuster.
Short of workers, we have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers.
Bro, are you actually fucking serious? This requires a voter ID. If you're an immigrant, like you say, the people you want to welcome, they should have a voter ID. So he's actually admitting there that they want illegals to vote in elections. This is crazy.
And all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for
Dude, he wants to legalize 11 million illegal aliens who are unvetted from war-torn countries, from the Horn of Africa, who are soldiers, who commit rape as a weapon of war, who disproportionately commit crimes by orders of magnitude. Individuals from Somalia and Kuwait, they commit 60 times the amount of actual, say, offences than the actual original population do. This is insane, and he wants to grant citizenship to 11 million of those. But what difference does it make? Why wouldn't you pass this act anyways? Because they have to have ID to vote in the first place. So why are you against there being ID? Do you actually want these illegals to vote? This is the Democrat position now.
all 11 million or however many.
11 million he wants to legalize to vote in elections. These people who just turned up in America, economic parasites, the Somalians, the Somalian colonies that are being forged in Minnesota, for example. 85% of Somalian households are on welfare. They're just economic parasites. They come to steal off the taxpayer. He wants to legalize those people to vote. So you have to pay for them forevermore, and they're going to vote for you to pay for them. This is the Democrat position.
Documented. There are here. Short of
Crazy. So Chuck Schumer is saying that they're going to do a government shutdown to stop this going through. There's talks of including the SAVE Act in a funding bill to try to get Democrats to pass it, but Trump has come out and said he wants it clean down the pipe, cuzzy wuzzy. He doesn't want it attached to a funding bill. He wants this to pass in and of itself. And Chuck Schumer came out on X and he said these are basically Jim Crow laws. Asking for voter ID is a Jim Crow law. So by that logic, that means these following institutions are also Jim Crow adjacent: the labor union conventions, the Grammys, the Oscars, the Emmys, banks, pharmacies, hospitals, airports, hotels, gun shops, casinos, schools, social security, casinos, and employers. All of them require ID. Apparently they're all Jim Crow because they require ID. Why would you not want an ID? That suggests that the people who vote mostly for Democrats don't, at the very least, find it difficult to provide an ID, or at the worst, don't have an ID. Republicans would say the same thing if it were beneficial to them. Republicans would also say we don't want voter ID if it were beneficial to them, right? So it's not beneficial to them, which means people without voter ID don't vote for Republican. Okay, so people without voter IDs vote Democrat. So who are the people without voter IDs? Who are they? They're illegal fucking aliens, bruv. So they're admitting that illegal aliens vote for them. If this were an honest admission that it's just difficult for some people to vote, then why it would be the same for both parties. If you pass voter ID, it would therefore be equally difficult for people to vote for both parties. So why would they have a problem for it? Why would they have a problem with it? They have a problem because the people who vote Democrat, the people who vote without IDs disproportionately vote Democrat because those people don't have IDs because they're illegal. There's simply no reason not to require an ID to vote. I'm sorry, if you can't get an ID together, if you can't find it or you can't apply for one, you shouldn't be voting in a fucking election anyways. It means you're incompetent. You want to pay on your fucking watch, you need to set up your Apple Pay. You need an ID for that kind of shit. You want to vote, which is even more serious than paying for something because it creates all the laws in the country. You just got to set it up. And if you can't, tough shit. But Democrats are going to try to stymie and stop this bill. That is why Republicans are going to nuke the filibuster. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune is talking about nuking the 60-vote filibuster. And apparently the way they're going to do it is to nuke the zombie filibuster. So the zombie filibuster is just the tacit threat of a filibuster. A real filibuster is actually standing up there and just talking endlessly for hours and hours and hours to delay the vote as long as possible, potentially for infinity. You can have more than one person who's going to continue to talk. They could do anything. They can read out recipes from a recipe book. They can read out a fucking old phone book they got off eBay or something. They can keep on doing it in a team of up to 4 or more. So one person will keep talking, delaying the SAVE Act being passed. When that senator goes to sleep, the next Democrat senator will take over and keep talking. They could potentially do that forever. But people don't want to do this for so many reasons. There's work to be done in the Senate, and you don't want to have these kind of optics going on and on without any work being done with people constantly talking. So that's the actual filibuster. So the zombie filibuster is the tacit threat of that, because no one actually wants to do that anymore. So if Senate Majority Leader John Thune nukes the zombie filibuster, that would mean one of two things. So either they're going to go back to the OG filibuster, you're going to see people actually talking in the Senate, trying to stymie and delay the SAVE Act going through. I actually think this could happen. I think Democrats would love it. They love the attention this brings. We already saw, who's that absolutely mentally ill, like wide-eyed sociopathic cockroach? Who's that guy? Cory Booker. So that guy, do you remember when he did something, he talked for like 24 hours or something, which isn't anything. We've done 24-hour streams here plenty of times playing video games, up to 36 hours plus, Kazi-Wazi. But anyways, he talked for 24 hours plus, just going on and talking about how they won't divide us and all this crap. I think Democrats would love those optics. They'll use it going towards the midterms to try to boost their profile and come across as warriors and shit. Because with them, it's all emotions and feelings and like, let's pretend, and nothing's based on reality. It's all theatrical and shit. So I think that they would love an OG filibuster. So that actually could happen, since Senate Majority Leader John Thune is thinking about nuking that. But if that doesn't work, then they can actually just straight up get rid of the filibuster, and that would require a Senate vote, a simple majority, to just get rid of it. And as long as a majority of Republicans are on board, then that could happen, and then the SAVE Act will get rammed through, and people will require voter ID in elections. So I never thought I'd see the day, and I didn't want to do this, but Democrats are so radical. Leftists have destroyed my country of England. I'm a fucking nomad now. It's been taken over by Africans and Muslims. The most popular baby name for the last 5 years running is Mohammed. White British population number, it's 33% in London. And I actually think it's less, because I went back in December. When you go to Heathrow Airport, it's just like foreigners on advertising, Africans, Muslims with open arms like this. Population replacement has happened in my country. And just like in America, like with Somalia, these immigrants who are brought in, they vote disproportionately for the left because they're voting for socialism and they're voting for benefits. And, you know, like that is the most radical thing that's happened in the last 2,000 years. There's never been such a quick, huge population demographic shift. And the fact that it's happening to the society which built the enlightened, free world is just disturbing. It's disturbing. And one could certainly argue that it amounts to genocide. Democrats are all about that. You saw Billie Eilish come out and she said recently, there's no such thing as an illegal on stolen land. In Hollywood, they basically espouse the Democrat narrative. They all have to do it or they're out of a job. I don't think they actually believe what they're saying, but that's where they promote that kind of stuff. It's extremely powerful, and that shows you what the Democrat policy is. When I went to the gym today in Japan, on TV, they were running on the news like what Billie Eilish said and like how you should abolish ICE. Justin Bieber had his little gay abolish ICE badge on and shit like that. These little puppets like dancing to their puppet masters tunes. Whatever they say in Hollywood is the Democrat narrative, and it's so powerful. It ends up out here in Japan, and like Japanese people will see it and probably go, wow, like want to save those people, and they'll probably be more open to those policies if and when, God forbid, they come to these shores over here. So Democrats extremely radical. The mainstream position is open borders, like people from war-torn countries, like I said before, soldiers, people who commit sexual offences at disproportionate rates, people who will be on benefits and welfare their whole life, who clog up the infrastructure, clog up the education system, clog up the healthcare system, all this kind of stuff. Democrats want to flood the country with these people because it will enable them to take power. and then they'll have a permanent voting block, a permanent majority, and you cannot reverse that stuff. Looking at that in England, it's everywhere, and even the natives start defending that stuff because the propaganda is so vicious in the schools. Kids are brought up to hate themselves, feel this kind of existential guilt, hate their country, and buy into this kind of victimhood narrative. So they just shut up for fear of being called racist and allow themselves to be replaced by people who vote to basically take their money. It's disgusting. And that's a leftist position in England, all across Europe, in Germany, in Spain. In Spain, they just gave citizenship to 500,000 illegals who have a very low IQ and haven't produced anything of worth in thousands of years. That's the most radical shit I have ever seen. And it sounds insane because it is. They're doing insane things. Don't shoot the messenger. So we should nuke the filibuster. We should fucking nuke that shit. Like Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined, as far as I'm concerned. Get it done. Democrats will destroy the country, and they're on the cusp of doing it. They're hell-bent on getting power back. This is going to be interesting times, but let's see what happens, shall we? The SAVE Act isn't the be-all and end-all. It doesn't require in-person voting, as we've discussed, as Elon Musk said we must have. And it doesn't get rid of mail-in ballots. And it doesn't really do much about the tabulators, Dominion, Smartmatic, all that shit. But it does require ID to register an ID, and you have to do that in person. And it requires ID to vote. So it's a step in the right direction. Let's see where it goes. Massive, massive bill. And if the filibuster gets nuked, then who knows what other things we could see pass. Some very interesting things regarding like all of Trump's agenda that they're trying to stop and stymie at every single step of the way. Whew, so big news, everyone. Absolutely huge news. The composer for the original Halo video games weighed in on this on X. He said, "I understand that the number one organizing principle of the Democratic Party is their desperation to protect illegal aliens so that they can vote in our elections, but comparing a requirement of citizenship to vote with Jim Crow is pathetic even by Schumer standards." Couldn't agree more there. Could not agree more. So what do you think about this, my friends? We've got some really Orwellian stuff here. Freedom is slavery, everyone. Ignorance is strength, everyone. Mark Elias on X, 870,000 views. He said, President Trump urged Republicans to seize control of elections and place voting under national authority Monday. One of his most explicit signals yet that he plans to interfere with the workings of democracy. Yes, freedom is slavery. Requiring voter ID to prove who you are to vote in an election when there's millions of illegals in that country hosting the elections in the first place is interfering with democracy. Democrats have gone so radical. Why do you think they all celebrated when Charlie Kirk was shot? Do you remember that? All of them, every single one of them laughing, because all he did was come to respectfully have a debate in public, didn't hurt anyone, didn't call for violence. He was like the nicest guy ever, had a debate and was willing to speak to anyone who wanted to speak to him. They celebrate his death. They loved it because they're so radical. They wanted Trump gone. They would have celebrated if he had been offed, and he was millimeters away from that, lest I remind you. Democrats, insane, radical, violent cult. And they're now saying that if you want ID to vote in an election, it's the end of democracy. That's where we're at, everybody. That is where we're at. So, yeah, the SAVE Act, step in the right direction. What's your opinion on the SAVE Act? And what do you think about nuking the filibuster? Do you think it's a dangerous thing to do? Do you think the Democrats are going to do it anyways if and when they regain control of the presidency? I'd love to hear your opinions. If you enjoyed today's episode of Johnny Massacre's World, please consider donating on streamlabs.com/Johnny Massacre, patreon.com/Johnny Massacre, or paypal.me/give me a hell yeah. The links to the right of my head are also available in the description box below, and I'll much appreciate it. If you're watching now, don't go anywhere because you're going to be automatically redirected to a gaming stream, our 27-day Resident Evil challenge. We're on day 3, 27 days to finish every single Resident Evil game from 5 all the way to 8. That's 5, 6, 7, and 8. Cuzzy Wuzzy. In anticipation of the forthcoming Resident Evil 9 on February the 27th. Can we finish all those games before Resi 9 drops? Well, Come and find out yourself on the stream. You're going to be automatically redirected. Much love, everyone. Take care. See you in a second. Cheers.